wealth really encompasses much more than just financial capital. It involves intellectual capital, human capital, right? Which is why we talk about health so much and why health is so important to us as well. You've got spiritual capital, you've got emotional capital. All of these things come together to actually create really true wealth. So being really intentional, I think, about all of those things to me is really wealthy, right? It's not the opposite, which is, what you see on social media, which is really rich, right? Walking around and having a fancy car, having a yacht, having all of these things that actually really drag you back, right? They don't really provide any meaning in your life. Wouldn't you rather pay taxes on the seed rather than the harvest?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? But they're telling you to defer, and then they tell you when you can take your money out, how much money you can take out. And by the way, they control the whole game because they control the tax rate. I love how Ryan Holiday talks about the Stoics and, how you do anything is how you're going to do everything, right?
Hey, everybody, welcome to Unreasonable Health. I'm your host, Regan Archibald, and today I've got Dave Walcott on with me, and you're going to love what he has to share because he's the founder and CEO of Pantheon Investments. He's very passionate about helping entrepreneurs build wealth by passively investing in superior real estate. And I don't know about you, but the market's changing and you need wisdom on your side. And Dave, he spent the last 20 years building several businesses. He's an entrepreneur. He has written great books. One of those books is The Holistic Wealth Strategy, a framework for building real wealth and living an extraordinary life. And he's also the host of top-rated The Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy podcast, which I was a guest on recently. And he's got a very fascinating history as well with being captain in the Marine Corps, and we'll jump into that. But and then I also, you guys are going to learn about what it's like to have triplets. We'll talk a little bit about that too. So Dave, so good to have you on the show.
Awesome to be here, Reagan. Always great to connect with your audience as well.
Yeah, and you've done a lot of phenomenal things in your life. What would you say gave you kind of that entrepreneurial drive? Was this like, because in the Marine Corps, you don't typically find entrepreneurs that come out of it necessarily, but you're one that's like forged your own path. But maybe you could talk about that journey a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, Reagan. So, when I was raised in Connecticut in a middle-class family, I thought that the recipe was success was to just go to school, get good grades, you're going to get a job, and then, everything's going to work out, right? So kind of followed down that path. I went to George Washington University in DC and did the ROTC program. Afterwards, did 4 years in the Marine Corps and really learned some things in the Marines that they just don't teach you anywhere else. Things such as leadership, teamwork, and integrity. And then shortly after I transitioned into the corporate the corporate world, I got into the tech industry and started to kind of build a career there. And I'll tell you, Reagan, I became really frustrated, right? I became quickly dismayed with losing that sense of purpose and that sense of mission that I had in the Marine Corps. And at the same time, my wife and I started raising a family. We had an 18-month-old running around that we were just trying to figure out how to raise, right? There's no playbook on that. And then on October 24th, 2000, we literally welcomed triplets into the world. And so that quadrupled the size of our family. And, the first thing that I did was I went to see my financial planner. Because I'm thinking, how am I going to actually provide for financial security for my family? It's $1 million to raise a kid now. So that's now 4 million. Plus I want to retire and I want to live a big life. Right. And, he told me the same advice that I heard from every other planner, which was, max out your 401k. There's 529 plans for your kids. and things like deferring your taxes. And I knew right then that that was not the recipe for success.
Mm.
And, you were not, the top 1% were not building their wealth right that way. So I set out on this obsessive journey to really unpack and build how the top 1% were really building their wealth. And so fast forward to today, I spent about 20 years basically investing in everything from oil and gas to single family real estate to multifamily real estate to self storage, retail, raw land, all kinds of alternative investments, and then really created Pantheon to help other people just really figure out what is the blueprint, right? How can I actually become ultra wealthy? What is the roadmap to really get there?
And what's the difference between wealthy and ultra wealthy? It's a word that I've never had defined. I'd love to hear your insights on that.
Yeah, I think there's some different charts and things, and people can throw around numbers and everything. But what I think is really important, Reagan, is to me, wealth really encompasses much more than just financial capital. It involves intellectual capital, human capital, right? Which is why we talk about health so much and why health is so important to us as well. You've got spiritual capital, you've got emotional capital, right? All of these things come together to actually create really true wealth. And this is what people who understand wealth, and I spent a lot of time in centimillionaire communities. So people with net worth over 100 million, and you'll find that a lot of people, once you hit a certain point in your financial capital, that adding additional money is not going to materially change their lives, right? So, what is it that's going to change your life, right? It's all about those things that really matter, like deeper relationships, it's deeper health, right? And focusing on our health. I mean, look how much money Steve Jobs had, but yet he couldn't buy himself one more day, right, to live
Yeah.
another day. Right. So being really intentional, I think, about all of those things to me is really wealthy, right? It's not the opposite, which is, what you see on social media, which is really rich, right? Walking around and having a fancy car, having a yacht, having all of these things that actually really drag you back, right? They don't really provide any meaning in your life.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultra wealthy is like I love that because it's not about money, it's about all the other aspects of life that are just as important. And I think the great thing about having financial insights is the fact that it provides a lot of freedom in our lives and it gives us the ability to pursue, other deeper relationships, pursue our passions in life, our purpose, our goals without the stress. And so if you looked at some of the things that make your investments different, I mean, you've gone through a lot of different industries. What are some of the top three things that people could be thinking about right now to start moving towards that life of an ultra wealthy life?
Great question, Reagan. And I what I find so interesting is there's so many parallels to health here, right? I'm sure all of your listeners, right, went on this journey and really had to figure out that the traditional medical system and healthcare system, it's all about sick care. You go in when something is wrong, right? And then they try to treat it versus being proactive about what you can do. Well, I spent a lot of years being frustrated, and basically, none of us were taught about how, to improve our financial IQ, right? We only learn from basically from Wall Street, which says the only way to invest is stocks, bonds, mutual funds, put your money into 401ks, defer your taxes, and do things like that. When you actually start to learn from the ultra wealthy, like family offices, centrimillionaires, and how those people are investing, it's actually investing in alternative assets. It's things like investing in real assets, like apartment buildings. It's understanding that you can invest in oil and gas and actually get 100% a paper loss on your taxes right? To actually reduce your taxes and create, free income there. It's about learning that you can invest in things. There's something called infinite banking, which is a cash value whole life insurance policy, which is a complete multiplier on your money, right? So rather than investing in looking for a yield, taking $1 and looking for one yield on it, it's how can you get a multiplier on your money that's doing multiple things for you.
Mm. The oil and gas, that's interesting. So it's essentially a depreciating asset, just like real estate is then?
Exactly. So there's different classifications in the tax code, but essentially it's a depleting asset because it's there's only so much of it, right?
Mm.
So the government, when you can actually make the paradigm shift and understand that you can become a partner with the government, right? And look at taxes that way. The government is actually incentivizing us to invest in things like oil and gas, like real estate, and that's where you get tax advantages. So we're always looking at different types of assets that provide three different things. So this is really the trifecta of investing, where you can get cash flow, you can get some kind of forced appreciation and upside to the opportunity, and then you can get some tax efficiency where you get savings through your investment as well. And oil and gas, yes, you've got this depletion. You have what's called IDCs, or intangible drilling costs, which actually offset. So you get a on paper, when you get your K1 statement, it comes back as a loss. So let's say you've invested $100,000 and then in the year it's a 90%. We have a fund right now that's 92% offset to your active income. You're going to get a $92,000 deduction on your overall AGI, right? Which is huge. So people, entrepreneurs having exits or high income people using these types of strategies are really sophisticated.
And I think that's where it's really important because most of our audience, entrepreneurs, or they're entering into their entrepreneurial journey. But the big thing that you want to look at with what Dave shared is you probably are overpaying taxes. My friend Garrett Gunderson calls it tipping Uncle Sam. Because when we take on risks, and this is what I was recently, I had some of our clients and friends from Monaco and France, and they're in the investment world as well. But we're talking about the difference of the European governments versus the United States. And in the United States, we're incentivized to innovate. Like we have the research credits that I use every year. We have, if you buy real estate, especially commercial real estate, it's a depreciating asset. And so there's ways of offsetting the risk when it comes to taxes. And so many of us don't take advantage of that. So that's kind of like, it's nice that you have that as part of the strategy, but then also, looking at the right investments that grow over time. So how did you get into, I mean, was it just having four kids that just kind of got you interested in wealth, or was it your dad, or did you have a mentor early on, or read a book? What got you down this pathway?
I think it's really just, discovering my unique ability, Reagan, right? And
Mm.
understanding, my strengths. And I think the light bulb moment for me was probably, taking the purple pill and reading, Robert Kiyosaki's initial work, right around Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and really the cash flow quadrant, which helps you understand that, to play the game, if you're a business owner and you're an investor, you're going to pay the least amount of taxes. You can actually pay, you can get to a place of zero taxes if you're investing properly. And if you're a business owner, you have, unlimited ability to scale, right, in terms of your value creation and also creating, impact in the world. So that was the first thing I think that really helped me. And then, knowledge plus action, right, is the power. So I, went and invested. Not everything went well, but a lot of things did go well. And then I have really tried to synthesize this over the years to create a framework for other people to just get there sooner. Because I can tell you the biggest challenge, Reagan, we have is really breaking away from this conventional thinking that Wall Street and the government wants you to do, right? Just think about it for a second, right? If you were on the other side, you were the government, right? They tell you to put your money in your 401k. Oh, you're going to defer your taxes, so you get an offset this year. But wouldn't you rather you come from the farming, your background is in farming. Wouldn't you rather pay taxes on the seed rather than the harvest?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? But they're telling you to defer, defer, defer. And then they tell you when you can take your money out, how much money you can take out. And by the way, they control the whole game because they control the tax rate. So by the
Yeah.
time, you go to retire, that could be a lot later. So this is also about control, right? Having more capital in your control and making wise investment choices, right? That can really help, your family support your goals and stuff. So really trying to uncover the fact that a lot of, traditional financial planning, this conventional thinking, they just have you thinking that Wall Street is the only answer. But I can tell you, after years of this investing, right? Just think about it. If you have $1,000 of Tesla stock, right? The only thing you're hoping for is that that stock is going to go up in value, and you have absolutely no control. And in reality, that stock can go flat, it can go down, and it moves with the market, right? But again, when you get to this like trifecta of investing, we can get tax breaks, we can get cash flow and passive income, and we can get forced appreciation in the asset so we can actually try to grow the asset. And then the idea is that you build up enough passive income streams, right, to pay for all your medical, your alternative health care and things that you're doing, and then the lifestyle that you're living. So, work becomes optional, right? And then you keep growing your asset base at the same time. And as that asset base keeps growing, you keep offsetting the taxes, and it's a rinse and repeat strategy. And this is what the wealthy do really well.
And you talk about this financial IQ, and it sounds like, I mean, everything you're saying is like it makes sense, and I really love that. And Dave and I are in strategic coach together, and so you'll hear like you looked at your unique ability and you said, okay, I've got it in this arena, and you've really maximized that. But what are the kind of strategies of building financial IQ? Do we could just listen to your podcast, read your book? I'm sure. I mean, obviously, just learning from you, it's helped increase my financial IQ. But what are some things that you've done to increase yours, or maybe what some strategies people could use right away?
Yeah, so really in my book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy, we talk about five specific phases, right? And the first phase is all about mindset, right? It's actually having a growth mindset and knowing that, hey, I have to learn new things. I have to be asking why every day. I have to be curious. And then I have to start creating goals and habits to support those goals, right? And I have to start removing limiting beliefs, right, in my life, right? So that's really important, number one, because so many people, I mean, just like this alternative healthcare, right? When you go home at Thanksgiving here in a few months and you sit around the table and you want to tell people that, you're doing stem cell therapy or exosomes, and they think you're crazy. This is the same thing where you say, well, I just, invested in a self-storage, asset. And they say, well, my financial planner said that's a bad idea. Right. Um,
Yeah.
so it's the same kind of thing. So you have to start with mindset. And then to answer your question, around financial IQ, these are all of these areas where I believe that, a simple equation people can think about is that your net worth equals your mindset IQ plus your financial IQ plus your relationship IQ plus your health IQ. Okay,
Mm.
so the more you can learn about these things, and if you don't have financial capital at the moment to, let's say, invest in the next opportunity or something, what you can do is be listening to great podcasts like this. You can be reading great books, right? You can increase your relationship capital by spending time with like-minded people in great mastermind groups like we're a part of, right? So
Yeah.
constantly learning and growing, getting that you could be one relationship away from the biggest opportunity of your life,
Yeah,
right?
man, and Dave and I are also in Genius Network, which is, I mean, there's so many opportunities if you get out there and talk to people. And one of the things we do, Dave, is we host retreats, longevity retreats. We do a couple a month in our office, and it's really phenomenal because people meet new friends, they have new business connections, they get their body rejuvenated. You know, we have a stem cell party, we have peptide parties, so people get a lot of education. But you're right. It's like when you can bring people together from a health perspective, our everyone's IQ goes up, everyone's healing goes up, and it's the same in the financial world when you realize that individuals like you can help accelerate the growth and help avoid some of the mistakes that so many people make. And so I love that. I do want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about the Marines because if you meet Dave, like he's very fit, very healthy, and we connected right out of the gates. And I noticed I think it was in the gym or somewhere, I was like, dude, your quads are huge. It was, people, my wife is always like, you always like just state these things. And so I hope I didn't embarrass you when I said that, but you built these massive quads and, you had to be pretty fit to get into I know you had to be very fit, but then you've kept the fitness going. But what are the things that you did back then to stay healthy and fit? And then what are you doing right now to maintain unreasonably muscly quads?
Yeah, sure. So, look, in the Marines, you basically like running was key, calisthenics, core work, like stability, mobility, all of that was super important. And, one of the tests was to do a 3 mile test in 18 minutes was the maximum. So I started running. In college, and I had never run before that, but I kind of got into running. Yeah, I think my fastest time was like maybe under 6 minute mile, back in the
Gee.
day. And then, I started to do that, then started to get into marathons. So I did three different marathons, actually ran the 100th running of Boston. My time was 3:07 in that. So back in
Wow,
the day.
that's
And then
fast.
I got into Ironman because, running is really hard on the body.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the cross training for me. Eventually did Ironman in 96. And I just love to compete. I love how Ryan Holiday talks about the Stoics and, how
Yeah.
you do anything is how you're going to do everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's so important. Like, that's why it's the health, it's the mindset, right? It's your wealth, it's all of these things. But to me, it's just really, uh, it, working out is just kind of it's like brushing my teeth. It's who I am. It gives me the energy to do the things that I do. And today at 54, I can tell you I was on the bike doing intervals yesterday with a threshold, functional threshold test, and I just got my one. I was only 7 minutes off or 7 watts off from my 1 minute all-time PR at
Seven
500,
watts is all. That's like
500
nothing. That's
at
crazy.
500 watts in 1 minute. So yeah, and my VO2 is top 1%, for my age group right now.
Yeah.
Um, so I religiously, work on that. And this is one of the things, I talk to, our clients about as well is, the biggest investment that you could ever make is investing in yourself, right?
Yeah.
And it all starts internally, right? And if you can get your body right, the mind is an organ in the body. the mind comes along, right? And then we start to get into these other things with, and I know you've had brain retreats and all kinds of cool things, but I mean, it's amazing where you can go, right? When you start doing breath work and you're starting to do meditation and the neuroplasticity of your mind and where you can really go. But I just love to do it in conjunction with being really fit as well, because it's a complete multiplier.
Yeah, it couldn't agree more. And I like how you said, like brushing your teeth, it's a non-negotiable, and exercise is a non-negotiable, but it's not even hard. It's just like it's harder if I have to delay my workout. I'm getting my blood drawn, or have an early appointment, or travel. Those are the hardest days, but phenomenal VO2 max. Well done, and in your watts. I mean, that's like when people are in their 40s and they say, "Oh man, I'm getting old," it's like, don't tell yourself that, because it's the ages of between 44 and about 60 is when your biology decides how your 60s, 70s, and 80s are going to look. Like you're going to have really poor health and a lot of pain and become decrepit, or you're going to be like Dave and just start crushing it, because I can guarantee you keep this up, like your 70s, 80s, 90s, hundreds. What's your lifetime extender goal, by the way?
146 is my number.
That's awesome. Yeah. So by the
Yeah.
time Dave's 146, he's still, I guarantee you, he's going to be working on VO2 max and working on fitness, because it's just part of his life. So that's fascinating. And if you look at your, the work that you do as a dad, that's my favorite role in life. Is really is challenging but rewarding. Like my daughter's coming up from college tonight. I'm so excited to see her. But what are some of the kind of the principles that you bring into your house, and what are you teaching your triplets and I guess you have another baby that's kid that's 18 months old. Was there an 18-month gap? Did I get that right?
Yeah, so she's my oldest now, who's 25, and she's actually expecting in October. So I'm actually going to be a grandfather here soon, which is super exciting for our family. But that's really a great question you've asked, Reagan, and this really ties into the work that we're doing, which is we actually run a virtual family office, and so we help people manage their wealth in this kind of alternative fashion. But part of, running a virtual family office is actually helping people create their own family office. And what does that look like? Well, we're actually creating a family constitution. We
Mhm.
have family values, right? We are creating a legacy and documenting it and putting compliance around it. And we have an annual retreat where our whole family, because now my kids are in my 20s, right? So it's much different, right? But when we finally get together, we have this annual retreat where we can work on values, we can work on strengthening our relationships, and really just trying to formalize this entire legacy that we're building, so that our subsequent generations are going to know the things that we really stood for, right? And then try to give them certain opportunities, right?
That's awesome. And are your kids, I mean, do they appreciate it?
Well, I've got to tell you, I mean, this is a great story for the listeners as well. And this is what makes me so passionate, Reagan. So, my daughter, who's 25, right, she's been learning about these financial principles from me because we mastermind in our household while they were growing up in high school. We're talking about money in our house, right? And how you use it, because that's where it starts.
Yeah.
So she set up in college. She We set her up with a whole life cash value, whole life insurance policy. She
Yeah.
started putting her money in there. It's growing tax free in there. She has the life insurance. She graduates Virginia Tech, and her boyfriend, they buy a place in Knoxville, Tennessee, a single family home, borrowed money against the policy to
Yeah.
then put the down payment on the house. They went in the house, they house hacked and spent 18 months in the house putting in sweat equity, doing projects and everything. They sold the house and made 2 years later and made almost 130 grand in equity.
Wow.
at that age, and then they went and bought their next house, and they were cash flowing it before they sold it, right? So these principles of like where she's going, and you want to talk about financial IQ, I mean, compared to her peers, the assets that she has now on her balance sheet, where she's headed, the numbers just keep getting bigger. So we do talk about this a lot, and I think it's just such a great opportunity to, help, not only our kids, but, our families and our communities. And that's really my mission, is to, help people see things that, you're not seeing, kind of like you're doing with health. It's like, maybe uncovering blind spots or thinking about your health in different ways you hadn't even thought about before, because it wasn't really possible and it wasn't really taught to us anywhere, right? It's the
Yeah.
same thing with wealth. It's not taught to us anywhere, but maybe we should start asking questions, right? Because we want to create a legacy. We want to live amazing life.
Yeah. I love that. And it's not like the crazy thing about that, like you help I mean, you had the strategy to set your daughter up for success, but then um, she took advantage of that opportunity, and she was like, and I think that says a lot about, the principles that you've instilled in your kids. It's like, we live in America, and it's a land of opportunities, but you have to jump in and take advantage of the opportunities. And they saw it with fixing up their house in Knoxville, and those are some of the lessons my dad taught me. Actually, one of the things we did when I was in Hawaii, finishing up school, he lent me the money, but I owed him close to $200,000, and I was working the whole time through and paying as much as I could with on my tuition. But it's expensive, and I saw a property for sale a lot, and I'm like, we can build a spec house here. This was in like '03, when the market in Hawaii was just taking off, and we timed it just right. And I built a spec house. We sold it for about 150,000 more than what I planned. We split the profits. I was able to pay my dad back everything, and then have about 50K to start my practice. So it was so good, because all my other friends, they're deep in debt, and they're still stressed out about it. How are they going to pay off their student loans? And this is 20 years later. But my dad gave me a great opportunity, and so I think that's amazing. Well, Dave, if people want to reach out, I would recommend everybody pick up a copy of Dave's book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy. Where's the best place for people to purchase the book, and we'll provide all the details in the show notes, but also, and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, we wanted to make a special offer for your audience, Reagan. So you can get a free copy of the book at holisticwealthstrategy.com. And you're able to get a free download right there. It's the best place.
Oh, sheesh. Okay, so holisticwealthstrategy.com. Download the book. That's very generous. I appreciate that. And best place for people to reach out to you is it email, LinkedIn, or
Yeah, anywhere. I'm on every channel. Just you can look me up under Dave Walcott. You can find me, or pantheoninvest.com.
that's awesome. And just in closing, if we'll just do a couple rapid fire questions if you're okay with it. But what are your top health hacks right now? The things that you like feel like you get the most leverage in your health with the smallest amount of effort?
Sleep is a big one. I've been studying sleep like for years, and it's so elusive to just get that, really nice sleep architecture. So I'm working on all kinds of different protocols, but that's a big one, to wake up and feel like you want to conquer the day versus dragging.
Right. Awesome. And then how about when it comes to fitness? What are some of
Oh
the
yeah. So I mean, the other things, I mean, morning routine is a non-negotiable. And my morning routine consists of, I mean, I'm usually 90 minutes to 2 hours every morning of working out. And then I hit the cold plunge, and I meditate on my PEMF mat.
Yeah.
And then I'll go into a journaling session after that. So it's all about putting myself into peak state. And for a lot of people out there, like who are thinking like, hey, I don't have the time to do all this, you know, just think about that for a second, right? Because what is the most important time, right? That's how I can say that I'm in my top 1% of my VO2 right now because I focus on that every day and it's those habits. So what's more important? And when I show up to work, I show up and it's very intentional, right? And everything is kind of power packed and high impact versus, I think most of American culture is not, fully effective, right? In this old paradigm we're under of working 8 hours a day and this time and effort. We're not in a time and effort economy anymore, right?
Yeah.
Depending what you do. So I think the morning routine is massive. And then I guess, from a working out standpoint, always having kind of a balance between, cardio, strength, is important as well. And another really big thing I've learned really over the past couple of years, Reagan, is just this understanding of the relationship between fitness and health. And I
Mm.
think I falsely understood in the past that because I was so fit, that I must have great health. Well,
Yeah.
I've identified some things, starting in my 40s, these blind spots, things like having some soft plaque buildup from a lot of the oxidative stress from Ironman training and all this other stuff, right? So these things are two very different things. And I, highly recommend if you're not, working with Reagan and have a strong functional medicine, team around you. Having that team is really crucial to identify those blind spots and making sure you're trying to, optimize your health.
Yeah. Well, well said. I couldn't have said it better because we see a lot of our endurance athletes. It's like, man, you're putting your cardiovascular system at risk with not having enough recovery time. And so one of the reasons Dave's still in the game, still has that top 1% VO2 max. So words of wisdom today. And man, I appreciate everything that you shared. And I got a lot out of it. I actually, this financial IQ, passing that down to our kids. I love that part of it. I also love the fact that the creativity that you have in the financial world, because there's so many opportunities and there's so many ways of increasing your wealth, but then don't forget about the most important things, and Dave, you did phenomenal at, enlightening me. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, make sure you share it with your friends, family, loved ones, give us a 5-star review, reach out to Dave, download his book, which I'm going to do right away, The Holistic Wealth Strategy. Go to holisticwealthstrategy.com. You can download it there. And Dave, I really appreciate your time, and thanks for being on the show and for being a friend.
Really grateful for the opportunity, Reagan. Appreciate you.